Alrighty, here we go. Super pumped up. What an awesome weekend. Kicked off with a real big win for my favorite high school football team on Friday night. It wasn't just a win, it was an absolute bludgeoning, which I'm very excited about because it was the rivalry, which on Friday night there was no rivalry involved. It was a bloodbath, and the good guys won, which is awesome. So that got me fired up. Had a great weekend. Got a lot of things done. The weather's nice. It's starting to maybe a little bit feel like fall. I went on a trail run yesterday. I was out in the woods, and, you could kind of smell the leaves just a little bit. I mean, another couple of weeks, I think we'll be, into fall, which I'm pretty pumped about. Fall's the best time of year. It's, I love football and cutting wood and not being fucking so hot out. That shit just drives me nuts. I don't give a shit about the climate change, global warming bullshit or whatever. But what I can tell you is that, man, when I was in college, this is 20 years ago, in the summer we'd have, 2-3 days that were high 80s, 90, high humidity. Very rare. I mean, they were so rare that we usually would take those days off of painting because it was too hot for the paint didn't adhere right, At least that's what we rationalized, right? But now it's like that's the whole summer. Like that's how it is all summer. Here we are in the middle of September, and that's what it was yesterday. It was in the low 80s. Stupid humidity, you know what I mean? It's going to be like that again here today. But anyway, I quit bitching about the weather. I'm not an old guy yet. Here's what I want to talk about. I had this whole thing with the De-Evolution of Man podcast, and then coming back with, the women's perspective thing, and, the boy crisis by Dr. Warren Farrell. I went through that book, and I pulled a ton of research, and as far as the main stuff, he and I were right on track. And like I said this earlier, you're never going to always agree with everything somebody says. So you find the stuff that's your common ground, and that's what you deal with. But I had a lot of feedback, positive and negative, on that. Like I told you, a big thing I got was from women talking about how men suck and all this shit. And again, that's not what I was trying to do with any of that stuff. But what I was getting from the guys is that, hey, man, I looked into this guy, Dr. Farrell, and he's not really a manly guy. Like, he's not. No, I know he's not. But his information, like I said, his academic stuff, that's all we talked about, we're on the same page. I'm a big believer that, let's go JFK, all right? I thought he was a great leader, if for no other reason than he had the entire American population behind him, or at least a lot of it, a big percentage of it. That's really what it takes to be a leader. You've got to have some kind of charisma. You got to have some ability to get people thinking and feeling with you. Ask not what your country can do, ask for what you can do for your country. People clapped at that. You imagine somebody saying that shit now? Stop worrying about how much money we're going to give you and how much free shit we're going to give you, and start thinking about how you can work harder to support your country. You imagine what would happen if somebody said that? Holy shit, the left would just explode. You want me to work? Fuck you. Anyway, my point is this. JFK, not a lot of people are going to argue that he was a bad leader. Not a real good husband, evidently. I mean, there's audio recordings of him, banging Marilyn Monroe, and who knows what else he did. I mean, there's a famous quote that his dad, Joe Kennedy, said to him, hey, just because you're married, don't think that means you can't have sex with anybody else. Like, I guess the old man, kind of taught him how to do that. But anyway, my point is this. Being good at your job, why can't that be its own thing? Why can't you just be good at your shit and not have somebody, but you about it? You know what I mean? Like, but he's not a... I thought like that about Trump. Like, I was doing some research the other day. I was like, I don't talk pro-Trump. I don't talk anti-Trump. But I looked into what he did. What was happening to our country while he was in office. And my God, unemployment rate was really low and income was really high. And it was crazy the foreign relations stuff that he did. I mean, he made friends with North Korea, at least sorta. Nobody'd ever done that before. I mean, I can go on and on. I'm not going to try to make this a thing about him. My point is this: that being good at your job, why can't that be its own thing? Why do you have to bring somebody's other shit into it? Like, I have to believe that you're the perfect person in order for me to endorse you as a leader or as a president or whatever. Like, you have to be the perfect person, really? Like, I think about that with my teaching career. Yeah, dude, I was a pretty good teacher, I was really good. Never had a negative review. Yeah, I did. Actually, I had one like my first year. Didn't know what I was doing. Of course I had a negative review. Made me better. 10 years I did that. And then I got caught with marijuana possession, which in that profession, in the public eye, that makes me a bad teacher. Like, doing your job is doing your job. Living your life is living your life. I like having some separation there. I never, as a teacher, lived more than or closer than about a half an hour from where I worked. I didn't want to live near where I worked. I wanted them to be two separate things. I go and I do my job, and then I come home and I live my life, and there's not a lot of crossover. I like it that way. I always did. And again, I'm really going a roundabout way of telling you this. No, I don't agree with everything Dr. Warren Farrell says. Not even close. Matter of fact, him as a man, like his personal life that's a half an hour away from his job, I don't think I'd like that guy at all. I mean, maybe he's a nice dude. He'd be a good neighbor. I bet you'd keep his yard nice and shit like that, and the stuff that you need out of a neighbor. But I don't think that he and I would have beers and like be buddies. I just don't. We don't see shit the same way. And that's okay. If the guy's your neighbor, what else do you need out of him other than being a good neighbor? I don't give a shit outside of that. I don't care what you're like for the most part within your home with your family. I don't care what you're like at your job. None of that shit affects me. I only give a fuck about what you're doing as my neighbor, And so, like, again, JFK, Trump, I mean, these are just presidents, but look at your own boss. I met a principal last week. Super nice guy. And from what I could gather by just being in the building, I think he does a pretty good job. And that's just all I give a fuck about with this dude. Like, are you good at what you're doing? Cool. I don't need to know what you're like on Tuesday nights. I don't need to know what, you did in your past. I don't, you see what I'm saying? There should be some, I guess, respectful, dignified separation there. And it seems to me that the people who dig into that shit are the ones that have, live in the proverbial glass house, right? So back to Farrell. His academic stuff is awesome. I got some great research from him, and I enjoyed every second of it. And I was like, holy shit, a lot of these things were like lights coming on that I always kind of thought about, but he did the research on it and proved the stuff, which made it awesome. However, there are some major things about him that I disagree with. Now, I'm going to share with you what those things are, but I don't want that to take away from anything I said about his academic self earlier, okay? Because that stands alone. That's its own thing. All that research that I got from his book, The Boy Crisis, great research. It aligns with, what I'm doing here, and that's great. And that's all I need from him. That's all I need. This is a second thing, separate thing. One doesn't take away from the other, okay? Know that. I believe that's how the world should work. Do your job well, and the people that you work with or the people that you work for, that should be all they give a fuck about, right? Unfortunately, most loudmouth, bitchy motherfuckers don't see it that way. But anyway, so Farrell, here's the stuff. I mentioned this earlier that he was anti-gun and anti-firearms, which most pretty liberal people are. And he quotes this stuff, which let's see how sharp you guys are. Let's see if you guys can pick up on this. So, mass killings, all right, and that's usually the argument against assault rifles, right? Sandy Hook, Columbine, the guy in Las Vegas. I mean, you can go on and on. Mass killings. That's why people are anti-assault weapon, right? That's usually the main argument. So let me talk about some mass killings here. In 1886, a labor rally at Chicago's Haymarket Square. 11 people were murdered, including 7 police officers. More than 100 were wounded. In 1910, 2 leaders of the Ironworkers Union pled guilty to killing 20 people in L.A. 1920, anarchists ended the lives of 40 and injured hundreds in New York City's Wall Street area. 1927, here in my home state of Michigan, Andrew Kehoe killed 38 elementary school children. Yeah, not high school kids, elementary kids, and 6 adults, and wounded at least 58 other people in what's known as the Bath School Disaster. And up until Oklahoma City, I think it was number 3 largest mass murder in the country, I think. 1971, unknown man murdered 30 in the upstairs lounge, a gay bar in New Orleans, French Quarter. 1972, caller claimed to represent Soviet Jews, killed 1 person, wounded 9. In an office, 75, lots of stuff in the 70s. 1993, 6 people were killed, more than 1,000 injured at the World Trade Center in New York City. 1995, Oklahoma City, Timothy McVeigh, 168 dead, injured more than 500. 2001, nearly 3,000 people were killed by a terrorist in New York, Washington, Pennsylvania. 2013, the Boston Marathon. Mass killings. They've been around for, over 100 years. 140 that I'm going back, right? What was the first one? 1886? 130 years, right? And if you're pretty sharp, you figured out what all these mass murders have in common. Yeah, those were all bombings that I just talked about. Bombings kill so many more fucking people than assault weapons do. You know? And, guns are the problem. We got to get rid of guns. Would have stopped 0 of these. And most of them you've heard about. How about 9/11? That wasn't gun violence. Not making light of that at all. Right? And that's the thing. So Warren Farrell, super anti-gun. Like I told you, he's got, I think it's chapter 21. I re-listened to the audio on that where I talked about him, and I said chapter 1. I meant there was 1 chapter, and it was chapter 21, where the whole thing was anti-gun, and he tied it all in that, all these, and I talked about that too, that these mass shootings, which he talked about, 92% of them or something, a super high percentage of them were committed by fatherless boys. Right? And man, when you talk about that, let's just take that statement. Talk about separating things. When you make that statement, people focus on different parts of it, right? If you're anti-gun, you're going to it's guns. Guns are the problem. If you're a man-hater, which is pretty fucking common, toxic masculinity, you're going to focus on the fact that it was boys who did it. You know what I mean? If you're Warren Farrell, if you're myself, and you're looking at that academically, you're going, well, we got to get dads more involved. And if it's, if you're a single mom who's all bitter, you're like, well, that's because dads fucking leave. Everybody's got a different way to blame when you make a statement like that, which it's kind of fucked up. But know that. Don't value project and think that everyone's going to see it the same way you do. All right? So, Dr. Farrell, he cleverly added all these opinions of his into a very academic, research-based book. And bro, it's your book. You can put whatever you want in there. I put whatever I wanted in mine. I put whatever I want in my podcast. But again, you as a listener, as a reader, somebody who's trying to get better at life, you need to know that you can sift through that and get great shit out of it. I think I demonstrated that fairly effectively when I did a whole podcast about what the Unabomber did right, what Ted Kaczynski did correctly. Guy killed a bunch of fucking people. I mean, he's going to fall into the category of bad person for most people, but that doesn't mean everything about him is shit. It doesn't mean everything about him is garbage. It doesn't mean that he never did anything that was worth a shit. It doesn't. It's on you as a human to sift through and go, well, I'm going to cast that aside, but I like this. I can learn from this. This will make me better. I'm going to cast that aside. Don't you do that every day in your job when you have a boss who's telling you to do things? You're like, well, I disagree with that, but I'll do it anyway because I'm a good soldier. Or I am behind this, so I'll put a little more time into that. That's what it is to be a human, to think for yourself. To not just believe the fucking headlines. To not just fall into the fucking trap of, oh, he's a bad person. You know what? I said earlier that, in order to be a leader or a president or whatever, like, is it the Supreme Court justice thing where they go through that really exhaustive drilling and research on your background and questioning, and you're going to find some shit, you know? And I said this earlier in a podcast fucking 4 months ago. You're never going to be perfect. All right? You're going to fucking make mistakes. And if you're not making mistakes, you're not fucking trying hard enough. And I don't mean trying hard enough to make mistakes. I mean, you're not taking enough risks, because that's where you get the gains. You know what I mean? Your life is a giant investment portfolio. Just take, some stuff you be real safe about it. Other stuff, let's take some fucking risks. Let's see where we can go. Let's roll the fucking dice. You can't have your entire retirement based on a 401k that's only growing at 6% a year or some shit. That's just a glorified savings account. Take some fucking risks. That's how your life should go. If you really want to get to the top, that's what you have to do. Now, I'm kind of getting off topic here, but with the guns thing, and I said this in an earlier podcast as well, that I'll tell you why I'm pro gun. I wasn't raised a gun guy. My dad didn't have guns. I didn't hunt as a kid. I didn't really have any interest at all until I was over 30. And I had a neighbor who was the county sheriff, and happened to be the county sheriff. And I just liked him. I thought he was a good dude. And we got to talking, and he's like, hey, man, what about coming in and training with us a little bit with the police department? I'm like, man, that sounds fun. Do some hand-to-hand stuff, whatever. And he's a real mild-mannered guy. He's not in office anymore, so I can say his name, Sheriff Doug Harp. You still are a role model to me. Great man, collegiate basketball player, excellent husband, excellent father, good dude, good friend of mine. And the things that he would say about firearms, just little comments that he made, just the way he lived his life. Hey, Travis, you're a good man. Why wouldn't you want to protect people around you? I'm going to, essentially by the end, it was this. Now that I've taught you how to do this stuff correctly, it's your responsibility to use this knowledge that I gave you to protect other people around you. Because most people are afraid of guns. Most people think that, when you watch a movie, as soon as that gun comes out, oh, that's a bad guy. The music changes and shit. That's what the world tells us, and that everything's all over the TV about. They never put it on TV where the CPL holder stopped a woman from getting raped, and I guarantee you that happens 100 times for every time some gangster with a gun in Chicago shoots somebody who wasn't armed because the law says that good guys can't have guns in Chicago. You know what I mean? Anyway, that changed my view on it. So once I saw it that way, hey, this gun isn't for me. It's not to be cool. It's to protect the people around me, because I've been lucky enough to have this education. That's my job. That's what I have to do with it. And ultimately, it comes down to self-reliance. I'll call 911 if somebody breaks into my house. I mean, if I can, I'll call before I take care of myself. But probably it's going to be after I've already put that fucker down. Because the police can't be there as soon as that window breaks and they climb in. Police can't be there. But you can. And it's your job to protect the people around you and yourself. That's why I have firearms. That's it. I'm not even a big shooter. I still don't hunt. I don't go out. But I know that I will protect myself. I'll protect the people around me. That's why I have them anyway. So Farrell and I were never going to get along on that point. Somebody breaks into Farrell's house, he's going to be cowering in the corner. I don't ever want to be in that position. Right? So there's one thing. We don't agree on that. Again, he spent a whole fucking chapter on it. He's also very anti what he calls the death professions. I mean, he talks about them in a very negative light, and what he throws into that category is basically anything construction related, basically a bunch of shit that dudes do. Driving semi-trucks, fighting fires, being a policeman, doing construction, all forms of construction. Basically, any place where your workman's comp rate's going to be so damn high, you know what I mean? Places where people get injured a lot, places where people could die. Ice road trucking, These are all male-dominated professions, and he is very against that. He thinks that, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I'm paraphrasing and gathering from what was in his book and from what was in his research, that if we do a better job raising boys, they won't gravitate so strongly to those professions. And then, I don't know, I'm not sure what the back end is in his mind. I wish I could get a chance to ask him this, and maybe I will. I'll reach out to him. Is the outcome that you're looking for to have a 50-50 split of men and women doing those jobs? I can think of some reasons why that won't happen. Are you trying to get it to where men just choose not to, or they're doing other things? I mean, he talks about, the outcome being the thing that he wants men to gravitate towards is to be the hero father. That's the way to kind of scratch these itches that men have built into them, and that's, I want recognition, I want praise, I seek a place to test my mettle and see how good I can be. I seek that challenge. These are things that are built into men, and I've said many times they need to be fed. And thankfully, there are these death professions where men can go and do these things, see how strong they are, see how tough they are, see how much they can build in a certain amount of time, see how great they can make it look, have some sense of value in what you're doing. And I say thankfully because who else is going to do it? You know what I mean? It's not going to get done. It's not going to get done. Talk to anybody. Talk to your neighbor. Talk to the person sitting next to you right now. Talk to somebody at work and say, how easy is it to find a good contractor to work on your house, or a good mechanic shop to work on your car? Nobody's going to say, oh my God, it's easy. Dime a dozen. Nobody's going to say that, okay? Because there aren't that many out there that are really good, all right? So thankfully there are people who are wanting to do it, and it just happens to be men, and that's that. It's okay. You know what I mean? Nobody's saying, well, we gotta get women to quit, going into these, no risk professions. Nobody's saying that, So the death professions, he blows my mind with that. I don't know if you guys know this, but what I do to actually make money is I'm a recruiter. Okay, my job all day is to talk to people on the phone and connect them with employers. I get people jobs, and I specifically work in the construction field. That's what I do. And I can tell you this, that in my almost 7 years I've been doing this, I've placed exactly 2 women in the construction field. One was a carpenter, and she lasted about 3 months, which was pretty good because it was a commercial job. And the other one was a front office girl. That's it. It's other than that, it's 100%, and that's out of in those years I've probably placed 350 people, so it's less than 1% are women. I don't think that's a coincidence, and I don't think that has anything to do with how we're raising people. I think that's men just gravitate that way. Why is that a fucking problem, bro? Why is that a problem? Who gives a shit? It's got to get done. I think about my buddy's sister. Posted this comment somewhere, and it said something about how at that point in her life, and it was when she was in college, she eschewed the patriarchy. My first thought was this, do you mean the patriarchy that, built the building that you were in when you took that picture? The one that invented the camera that took the picture of you? The one that created the internet that you posted this shit on? The one who not only created the school but built the buildings at the college that you were currently attending? Which part of the patriarchy are you saying is no good? Because you are rooted into every fucking ounce of it. Just because you want to say online that you don't like men, fuck. If you're gonna go all in, which would mean you're living in a teepee that you probably didn't build yourself, with no internet, no phone, no pictures, right? Men do great shit. It's bottom line. Doesn't mean women don't. All right? That's what I'm telling you, Dr. Warren Farrell. Okay? Men do great shit, and just because it happens to be manly shit doesn't make it bad. So stop saying that it is, bro. I mean, because you spent 30 years of your life with the biggest feminist group in the U.S. Dude, I know that impacted you. Whatever. Those are the choices you made. Enjoy. Doesn't mean we have to make those same choices. Now, here's one that is near and dear to my heart. He's also very anti-contact sports, because he says that same reason that men are getting into, football, wrestling, all these things where there's physical contact, boxing, MMA, because they're seeking praise. Because anyway, he's anti that stuff. And I will tell you this. The whole book, The Boy Crisis, is about how we need to do a better job of raising boys to be men. Okay? And Dr. Warren Farrell, you are an older man. You're probably 60. and your testosterone levels are lower. And I see this across the board. Like you can hear some of the quotes that like Schwarzenegger says now. Schwarzenegger, who was fucking chiseled out of granite, right? The Austrian oak, they called him. Now is pulling back on all the manly shit he used to do because he's fucking old, so he doesn't have the testosterone ripping through him. I talked with Jack Donovan about that. I made it, the quotes that are in my book, I compare Jack Donovan to, I can't remember his name. Yeah, I do. The coach from this book, Season of Life. I can't remember what the name of the coach was in there, but anyway, I compared their two quotes to each other, kind of compared and contrasted them, and I sent it to Jack, and he's like, "Yeah, this is pretty common. Like that guy, the older guy, they get old, and then they just soften out, like they kind of wussify, and that's going to happen to me too. It's going to happen to all of us, but that doesn't mean that that's the leading edge, thinking on masculinity. It doesn't. Anyway, so dude, you're older. I don't know. And man, you spent your youth with a bunch of feminists. I can't imagine that shit. That must have been fucking awful. But hey, man, that's what you did. That's fine. Do it. I'm not going to tell you shouldn't. But don't tell us that we should not either. So him being anti-football, obviously that drives me nuts. I've got a whole chapter in my book, the one where I quote. God, I got to get his fucking name. This is going to drive me nuts. Let's pull up fucking my book. I can find it in there. Which chapter was volunteering? I think it's like 7, right? 6. 7's workout. Automotive project. Finish your list. Maybe I fucking missed it. Oh, there it is. I have a fucking table of contents. How about I just look at that? Chapter 9. Okay. Chapter 9, volunteer. There it is. Joe Ehrman is his name. I compare and contrast those. And that whole chapter on volunteering, I just talk about football. That's all I talk about. And football is just, that's where I volunteer. And why I volunteer there, and I say that very clearly in the book, is because it's my belief that we've got to do a better job of turning boys into men. It's the same shit that fucking Farrell says in his book. I mean, it's fundamental to my core that this is a thing that we need to do, and I choose to use football to do it. Now, there just isn't. I don't think there's a lesson that you can learn about life that you can't use football to teach. That's all it is. Football is just a vehicle to teach about fucking life. That's how I see it. Now, there are probably guys that I coached with who would disagree, and what they would lean towards is the more academic side of it. Matter of fact, I had an interaction with one of the coaches the other day, and I said, I was talking about a kid who is now a senior, and he played a fucking awesome on Friday night. I'm super stoked about him because he played for me as a sophomore, and I helped to develop him. I made an impact on him and moved him along his path. And I said that, like, I was like, I built that kid, man. I helped him, I was really excited. I was just fucking talking about it. And I could tell by the look on the kid's face that, it was the coach's son that I was talking to. He was like, fuck you didn't do anything. And I'm like, and I didn't say this to him, but what I should have said was this. The coach's son, who's in his early 20s, he's a college football player, he probably knows more about football than I do. He probably does, but what he'll never know as much about is how to develop people, how to develop boys into men. That's what I do. That's what I'm good at. And that's why I was in the position I was in, was to do that. And with that kid, he came to me not starting, not really having a place, not having any purpose, just kind of playing football to play football. I don't know. I don't want to put words into his mouth either, this young man, this linebacker. But he came to me one day and said, hey, what do I need to do to be a real contributor here? And I gave him a couple of things he needed to do. And then because he came to me on his own and asked that, I thought, this kid's got something. So I started feeding him. I started giving him things for his mind. I started giving him opportunities to lead. I started opening doors for him. But none of that would have helped had he not chosen to walk through them. And that's a credit to his parents who made him a great person, right? So the parents make him a great person. I give him an opportunity. He steps into it, wears it like a stud. And now he gets to varsity football, and he's awesome. He's a great player. And what the son of the coach was trying to say was that you didn't teach him anything about football. Maybe not. Maybe not. But he doesn't get to do the things he's doing without every step that was before that. And that's mostly because of his parents. A little bit because of me. And now his dad, who knows more football than fucking God, can turn this kid into whatever he wants him to be. But all those things have to be in place. Bottom line is this. It's not about who gets to take credit for the kid, not at all. The kid needs to take credit for himself, and this kid does. He's a fucking stud. I'm proud of him. I hope I stay in contact with him for the rest of his life. But the idea is this. Football is that tool. Football specifically, and I think wrestling can as well. I had a conversation with a guy who was University of Michigan wrestler, that's a big deal. He was a captain. A good friend, a guy that I'm lucky to call a good friend. And we had that conversation as well. We've had that conversation a few times about what these sports do to develop manliness, develop manhood, develop adulthood. There's, recognize an opportunity when it's there. Learn what discipline is. Discipline is doing shit that you don't want to do or that it's uncomfortable because it's going to make you better. Learn how to deal with a locker room environment because that's fucking any job you're ever going to have, especially if it's male dominated. Learn how to take criticism. Learn how to take advice. Learn how to stay calm when there's a lot of fucking tension going on. If it's a 3rd and long and we got to have it, there's a lot of pressure there. You got loud noises going on around you. Learn how to perform when there's a lot of shit swirling around your head. All of these are adult fucking lessons. How you get better as an adult. And we use football to teach it. Yeah, there's some risk. Yeah, some risk. Name a thing that's worth a shit that's not risky. You have a better chance of fucking dying in a car accident than you'd have of dying on a football field. That's just the bottom line. Everybody drives. You know what I mean? Everybody drives. You got a way better chance of dying of obesity and type 2 diabetes than you have of dying of fucking COVID-19. Let's throw heart disease in there too. But everybody's scared of fucking COVID-19. Nobody's scared of going to fucking McDonald's though. You know what I mean? It's just... Sometimes this shit doesn't make sense, Dr. Farrell. So I fucking disagree with you. Football is badass because it teaches boys to be fucking men, and that's what you're trying to do. So I encourage you to look at that again. And I think if you were a little more self-reliant and less willing to fall back into the comfortable womb of society, you would probably be less anti-gun as well. And as far as the death professions, again, man, we don't do it. Who's going to do it? That's the bottom line. Who's going to do it? Who is going to fucking do it? It needs to get done. You going to build some robots? Well, now you be bitching because it's only guys building the robots. You know what I mean? I don't know. A lot of shit here. Yeah. A few kind of main points. Just because somebody does a thing you don't do doesn't mean everything about them gets tossed on the fucking burn pile. Okay? So know that about people. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody fucks up. I do. I talk about it all the time. And all that shit has made me better. And you have to hope that other people are going to handle their mistakes the same way. And hope that they're making the mistakes for the same reasons. And that's to try to take some chances and move ahead and get better. Hopefully. There's that. So know that about your leaders for sure. Football's fucking sweet. Guns are, I think, at this point, you're going to make it illegal for bad guys to have guns? Oh, you already did. So, probably better arm the good guys. That's just how it is. You're going to sit back going, you shouldn't have those. Boom, boom, boom. You get dropped. You know what I mean? Should's got no place in that environment. You're protecting lives. And then, the death professions, come on. I just don't see that becoming female dominated anytime soon. That's just my gut and also my very academic experience with the hiring that I do. And, again, people can look at that statement 1,000 ways. Oh, you're sexist. You won't hire women. They don't even fucking apply. Women don't apply. You know when women apply for jobs? They apply for the jobs that I post that say project manager. And then I get in there and they've got a bunch of experience running a retail shop or some shit. Like, they just didn't read the job description. You know what I mean? Project manager is something totally different in construction. Anyway, my name is Travis Neville. I wrote this book. It's called The Jossman Method. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on Audible. You can get it at good bookstores and bad ones alike. Pretty fiery today, but I hope that in some way this information I shared helps you to get your shit together. Have a great week.